I got to talk about this real quick. Fred VanVleet.
Woo-wee!
Iconic post-game rant, totally under control. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not. I wouldn't call it a rant. I don't think that's fair.
You're right. That
It was a
totally
speech.
Fair. That's right. And
how many cuss words?
A lot.
He came right out of the gate. He was just like, first off, Ben Taylor, the referee, was bleeping terrible tonight.
No,
that was his opening line.
His opening line was, I don't mind. I'll take a fine. I don't really care. And then I thought Ben Taylor was effing terrible tonight.
Okay. I don't remember that ever being said like that on the record, just blatantly like that. And that's the other thing. It's one thing if a guy gets called for a technical foul and loses his mind, or there's a foul he doesn't agree with and he loses his mind, and even if he gets ejected, like emotional utterances, and then sometimes the players can be fined for directing inappropriate language to game officials for that. He was totally cooled off, came in and said it. But this is the quotes are amazing. And no matter what you think about the job the officials are doing, and also it's important to point out that the Raptors, the night before in Denver, or was it 2 nights before?
It was 2 nights before.
Two nights
before.
Yeah, there was the controversial ejection. I think we talked about it on the pod. We did.
You talked about it with Goldsberry.
Yeah, they tossed Scotty Barnes with 28 seconds left in a 1-point game where nobody in the arena even noticed that he said anything.
Well, to be clear, not they. Scott Foster did it to the point where, in an iconic image, one of the other two refs on his crew went, "Huh?"
Hey,
all time,
as CP3 once said about Scott Foster, he the man. That's who they pay to see. Hey, this is Scott Foster. You can't spell Scott Foster without 3 little T's. Little T's.
All right. Joey Crawford, I think, pioneered the little T. But
he sure did.
Okay.
There's no T in Joey Crawford. There's 3 of them in Scott Foster.
It's important to understand that happened with the Nuggets. But this is what I'm getting towards. He sure did get fined.
Oh, 30 grand though. Come on. That's 20 grand lighter than I thought it was going to be. And then he thought it was going to be.
There is
the typical fine for these things, just so people understand why we're saying this. If you talk about officials after the game like this in a presser, if a coach,
not even like this. If you're just critical.
If you're critical of the officials after a game, say, Doc Rivers comes in tomorrow, they lose to Portland. He says the refs were terrible, cost us the game, blah, blah, whatever. Yeah. He's going to get $25,000. That's sort of the standard fine for going in after the game and saying, I'm going to get my money, take it from me, and I'm going to make a point. That's the standard fine. And Fred got 30.
So he fillets an official by name, and there was strategy for it because he said that Ben Taylor, and in fact, I'm not sure which Raptors media guy.
Josh Lewenberg from TSN looked it up.
He looked it up. VanVleet's been called for 8 technicals this year, and sure enough, Ben Taylor has called 5 of them on him.
No,
so this
3 it says in Ohm's story.
Well, Ben Taylor's crew, I believe, had called him for 5.
3 by Taylor.
That's correct. Okay.
Dude.
So, but my point is, real quick. Now, Fred VanVleet has got it out into the consciousness that Ben Taylor, there is a potential issue with him.
Yes.
And he potentially could benefit from that down the line in various ways. And it cost him $5,000 more than if he had just said, we got screwed tonight. If he had just used those verbiage, he's got the same thing. And I cannot believe that the NBA did not protect its officials, regardless of what you think about it.
Yeah.
That they did not protect these officials with more of a fine.
Remember when guys used to get fined if they cussed in the media? He was ripping a ref, and I'm not, I don't care if they cuss or not. I don't give a But anyways, he was ripping a ref, and I'm counting them just in the opening statement. There was 1, 2, 3 Fs, a BS, an S, and a phallic D. I mean, that's a lot. That is 6 expletives.
Why don't you go to the other 7 dirty words? Because that'll only cost you maybe another 2,500. Just go George Carlin right down the line.
Hey,
go for it.
It wasn't even an extra grand per expletive.
It was a remarkable thing to see Fred do that. And look, like, MacMahon in our chat dropped a video in of Scott Foster slipping and falling during the Mavs Pelicans game, but certainly that was a national TV game. The next night he basically could have worked after the game Monday, so it certainly wasn't like the league took any issue with what he did.
Bro, in the last 2-minute report, they called that technical a correct call.
Oh, I know.
Well, the technical.
Are you kidding? It's not a correct call to eject a really good player in a 1-point game when he mutters something under his breath.
Well, that's the ejection's the problem. The technical is questionable. The ejection,
and especially because he had none. It wasn't like he was sitting on one. He had none. It was a one technical ejection with 28 seconds to go in the game, and then he and Scotty are doing this at each other, pointing at each other as he's walking off the court. When Scotty's like, "Hey, bro, like, thanks." And Scott Foster's, going back at him. I mean, I don't know. All I'll say on this subject is that I've talked. Monty McCutcheon is obviously the guy in charge of the refs now. Was the best ref in the league, unquestionably. I've told Monty this before. Brian and I were both at Game 7 of the 2016 NBA Finals when Golden State lost to Cleveland. Obviously, a hugely emotional, intense game on every front. One of the most tense atmospheres, incredible atmospheres I've ever been in. There was not a single issue with the refs that entire game. It was the best ref game I've ever seen.
And they even got the LeBron block clean.
Perfect.
On Iguodala correctly. Perfect. Although having seen it live, I would have guessed. It was so fast.
And there was not one, and that was the most intense atmosphere possible. And those guys,
reviews, no reviews, like whose ball out of bounds. Clean as a whistle.
And I've talked to Buddy about that. It was him and Duke Callahan and Danny Crawford doing that game. 3 long time
Danny
veteran.
Crawford.
Well,
Mavs fans love him.
Mavs fans don't love Danny Crawford.
Hey, that is an example though. You mentioned VanVleet calling Ben Taylor out by name. I'll never forget. I was waiting because our stats and info group had given me like the Danny Crawford Mavs playoff stats that were just like alarming. They were like 1-17 in playoff games by him, and like the spread was something awful too, like against the spread, and just all kinds of numbers. So I had a story written just waiting for the first Danny Crawford assignment to the Mavs playoff game in 2011, and I think it was game 2 of the first round against the Trailblazers. So boom, like the ref assignments come out at 8 a.m. or whatever it is. The story's filed. Boom. Nate McMillan was so pissed off that I wrote that story because he was basically like, if there is any doubt now, it is going to go the Mavs' way. When there's that kind of a spotlight on a specific ref.
Did he say something to you?
No, he said it like in his pregame press conference.
Oh, okay.
He was like, if there's any doubt now, like he has to show that he's not biased, which means he will be biased against us is basically what his point was.
He didn't know Dan Crawford.
Right. Well,
the Mavs went undefeated in the playoffs that run with Danny Crawford.
Well, they also were the champions and a great team. That might have something to do with it.
Well, and all I was going to say about that game was that to me, the sign of a well-refed game is when you don't notice the refs are there. Not that they're not calling fouls, but that there's not controversy. There's not stuff going on. They're doing their job. They're keeping control of the game, and you don't notice they're there. And there have been a lot of veteran officials, those 3 guys included, who have retired in recent years. And there's a lot more, in my opinion, of refs being involved in the game.
Yeah.
A lot of technicals.
We got celebrity refs. And listen, man,
going on.
The whole review TV appearance thing, these guys are like, some of them got like the technique, and they've got.
Well, I'm fine with that. Other than the reviews taking forever sometimes. That's fine. Billy Kennedy being on the mic is great. That's fine. That's not what I'm talking about.
In Dallas the other night, the referee's mic didn't go to the whole arena. I thought it was supposed to go to the whole arena. Is that a Dallas thing?
Well, sometimes
tonight here in Memphis either.
Sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't. I think it just is
anyway,
the arena stuff is
my point is that this was not exactly the league sending the message that you can't MF a referee to the media.
Well, my point is and my point along those lines is that there's a problem in general, because there's a lot of tension going back and forth between the players and the refs, and it's not good.
I've always said I think Adam Silver does a phenomenal job, and we really shouldn't question anything that the commissioner's doing. I really think that guy's got a bright future.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.